Wish I had my glasses.
So video is coming into where it's everywhere. But the question is video more powerful than a well-written email when it comes to sales?
Oh, you're asking me. Sorry.
Yes, like what?
Yes. Actually, you can't even compare the two. There's such a vast difference, statistically speaking. If you send a regular email in just word email and your prospect client, they read it, they will retain up to 10% of it. But if you put that same information in a video, and I don't mean like high-end production, I mean like this, like, hey, like casual video, they will retain 95% of it. So that's 10xing the power of just sending a regular email.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The No Limit Selling Podcast, where mindset meets sales and leadership.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling Podcast. And one of the phrases I've heard in law firms is like, if you want to make partner, you need to be a rainmaker. And if you're in an organization, your sales, and you're bringing in the big kills, they call you a rainmaker. And today we have the privilege of having Violet Rainwater, who is a rainmaker and teaches people how to be better salespeople, how to use video, and how to use your mindset to break through barriers and reach your potential in sales. Violet, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So one of the things that we had chatted about was that video compared to email has a retention rate that is 10x.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Why is it that people want to pay more attention to video as opposed to reading?
Consumers have spoken, and that's their number one preferred method of communication. And it happened in COVID because everyone started communicating via video. That was how grandparents could see their grandkids. Sometimes they didn't see them for years. That was their only form of connection, communication. And that's exactly what it is. It's a form of connection. You're being able to connect on a deeper level than if you just wrote a formal email. And in today's age, so many people are using Chat GPT. I use it all the time, but you never know if what's written is really authentically theirs. But through video, there's no denying, it's authentic to you. It's what differentiates you from all of the rest.
Absolutely. And there's many platforms out there, like BombBomb is one of them, that allows you to do video messages right in your email that goes out. So the question I have for you, Violet, is that I can do a simple video like this, hey, Violet, my name's Umar, and the reason I'm reaching out is da-da-da-da-da. And I can do one that's better produced as well, something more slicker. Is there any stats on, because certainly just plain old me talking has a certain level of authenticity, and I could even add in a few ums and ahs versus something that's highly polished. Are there any numbers on how people react to polished versus real?
I think that there's a need for both, I will say, because one could be more of like a marketing video that's a little bit more formal, B-roll, and those are very cost effective. You don't have to spend a ton of money on making those. But I think there's something to be said about just raw. Like that's what's hip right now on Instagram and all these platforms is they want real. They want less edited, less produced. They just want you to show up as your flawed self and just speak your truths, share your gift. And that's enough right now. That's what's hot in the video space.
And I like that phrase, your flawed self, because really, in another way of putting it, it's like the real you. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot like, Violet, if you and I went out on a date, I would be charming and I'd smell pretty and all those, may I pull out your chair? And after the seventh date, it's like, hey, hon, how's it going? And
right?
And I think
I know that's so
realism.
lame.
Yeah. And so one of the problems, so I was doing a presentation, there's about 140 sales managers in the room. And I go, so if this is the sales process, getting appointments, doing the presentation, handling objections, closing the sale, and deepening into the account and or getting referrals, where do most salespeople in your team struggle? And what is the impact on their sales when they struggle in that area? And two things tied. One was getting appointments,
Yeah.
Like people aren't as good at that as they should be. And how much does that impact their sales? The average of 140 sales managers was like about 50% of their sales are left to others, the competition. And I won't even ask you to guess because you know it. The other one was actually closing the sale. So let's talk about the first one first. How can we use video to get more conversations? Because that's ultimately what we want. Is we want to find the right target and have a conversation and see if there's a fit or not.
Yeah. And I think video is just part of the piece of the puzzle, so I always start with a strategy like, okay, who is our ideal client persona? Who is this person? What is their pain? Let's feel it for a moment. Because when you make video, you want to talk to that person's pain. Like you just want to talk to one person, their pain. And so I think that, in regards to prospecting, it's about having a strategy and knowing who your target market is and creating assets that include video that gets to the heart of what their problem is. So you're like the guide that gets them, over the hump. Like, here's where they're at. Here's where they want to be. You provide the solution and you're just using video as a tool.
One of the tools in that. So let's, I know the business you're in, motivational speaker, sales architect. So I would suspect that a lot of your customers would have the VP of sales or chief revenue officer in their title. So if we were designing a strategy, let's say for a training program, and those group of people get bombarded with a lot of calls and requests every single day. So how do we develop a strategy for that target audience that stands out in some way so they actually give us their attention for the possibility of a meeting? So why don't you lay out kind of a strategy that might work?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. I mean, that's what everybody wants to know. Like, it's so crowded today. How do you differentiate? And I like to say it's threefold. So there is this sense of doing the outreach and innovating your sales process, innovating who you go after, how you go after them, the tech stack that you use, all those things help you, right? But I also think there's a piece of thought leadership, and that's where like LinkedIn comes in and starting to use video as a thought leader as well. So when you're connecting with them on LinkedIn, so you have your targeted list, you reach out to them on LinkedIn, they go and look at your profile and they see like, oh, this is what you're known for. And this happens to be a problem, a pain point that I have. So you're speaking on that pain. So that's another way for you, to use video. And I think also, good old fashioned, go where they hang out, like go and meet these people. There's nothing that can take place of heart to heart connection. And then use video as a way to follow up after you've met them on a heart to heart basis.
Brilliant. And so LinkedIn is like a powerful tool. That's how we met.
Yes.
So how do you use LinkedIn? Like what's your daily or weekly activity on LinkedIn?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I have been on a 5-month break. This is the longest break I've ever had on LinkedIn. I've been a content creator. You look
so relaxed.
It has been nice being off social media. I've been making something that has required a lot of my focus and energy. And so I just didn't have anything that I could spare. And I wanted to take this time. I have a big birthday coming up in a few months here. So it was kind of a significant time in my life.
So happy birthday.
Well, not yet. Not
it's
quite
coming.
Yet.
I won't see you then. So
yeah, it's one of those that makes you like reevaluate things, right? So I've been working on a few things, but back to what we were discussing. LinkedIn. Sorry. I lost my train of thought.
You're having a birthday coming up.
I know. I'm like, happy birthday.
Where was I?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So with LinkedIn, here's what I normally recommend. And it always changes. Changes. Like right now, what's working was different than before. Before, I remember I had sent one video to a president of a company and it landed me a 6-figure contract for a year and a half. One video, right? But that it's not like more people are using video. So I don't feel like that works on LinkedIn. I think what works on LinkedIn from a posting perspective is, again, understanding who your target market is and showing up and speaking to them, whether it's in written posts, those still do the best, those still have the highest views. I prefer images with like some message, something powerful, something tangible. And it's really about also the spacing. They're like right now, it's very much about like short sentences and how you are framing it, because it's all what's quick and easy for the eye. Right. Because we just want to skim. We're now a
Skimmers,
culture. Yeah. And so I would say 3 to 4 times a week consistently, and change it up, do some videos, see what works, see what your audience responds to, and also see what feels best for you. Like you have to get joy out of it or you're going to burn out. And I know, because burnout with LinkedIn has been like my journey, because I've been a content creator for so long. I used to do 5 videos every week, every week. I would make 5 videos for LinkedIn. And so that was a little much for me, a little much.
And something people forget about is that I saw Violet's brilliant video 6 months ago. I have no idea or recollection that I've ever seen it again. If I saw it again, it would be like new information. Maybe I've seen this before, but pretty much a lot of times we become slaves to create. But we forget that we created gems in the past.
That's right.
That are still relevant, because this is one of my fantasies. This is a boring one, so don't get excited.
Okay. Still a fantasy. I like talking about fantasies.
2500 BC. There's a marketplace just outside of Cairo, and there's 4 camel merchants, and one camel merchant is kicking butt, and he's doing much better than the other camel merchants. And it's got to be sales. And the other camel merchant's like, what's he saying? Like, how is he different? So I think this need to sell and need to improve has always been there. Unfortunately, I think the oldest sales manual that I've come across was I think a National Register company in the late 1800s.
Wow.
They've got a sales manual, and that's like fairly recent. But there had to be tips and tricks like way, way back as well that somebody was documenting in some way.
True. Well, it is the oldest profession of all, so it's been around. I personally feel like that's what we came to do. We came to sell. And if you think about sales, like from an energy perspective, it's just, energy coming together, like you're having an energetic exchange. But when you like come together, you're here and you come together, you help each other, and you leave on a higher plane, on a higher vibration. So I think sales is very much, like what we as spiritual beings, human beings came to do. And we just got it wrong, So, and I know most people don't think that way, but I really believe that. I think we all engage in sales day and night in some form.
I mean, just ask any 3-year-old. They'll tell you, if I want candy, go to dad and ask him in this way, and I'm going to get the candy. If I ask mom, it's like, no way. And if I want something else, mom's the one to go to.
It's innate.
And then we lose it as we get older and our internal stuff comes in, which we'll turn to that in a little while. But so, Violet, why don't we do like a speed round? I'm going to get you to kick off. What is one sales tip that you'd like to share with the listeners that they could implement right away? It could be video or beyond, wherever you want to go. What comes up?
Oh, one of my favorites, and this is more from an energy perspective. I love to talk about sales and energy. This is called pricing. So try this the next time you're in front of a prospect. But pricing basically is holding the person in front of you in the highest regard and sending that energy. So looking for things that you just love and adore and are grateful for. So like as you're thinking that, your energy is rising, and that's what you start sending out to them, and it changes them. Even though they don't know that's what you're doing, it changes the exchange. Like it warms it up for you. It's like foreplay before sex.
Yeah. 2 things come up. Hey, that's a brilliant, brilliant thing. I've never actually thought of it that way. But as you mention it, 2 things come up. Number 1 is me looking at something attractive about you. And it could be your health, your vibrancy, something real that I find attractive. And I mention that. And it changes you. And by you changing, you changed me.
Yeah.
And so, and it starts that spiral going up.
Yeah.
And if I was just pretending and it's like, you have such a nice smile and it's not real, A, you can sense it, By the way, you have a beautiful smile.
Oh, thank you.
And the second thing that came up was there was a book called Red Sparrow, and they made it into a movie, and it involves spies using sex to get information, entrapping American senators, whatever. And somewhere in the book they were talking about for the prostitute, it's like you have to find one feature of that person that you find attractive, and that's what you hold on to.
Right.
So it's very, very similar. And what we're doing there is really honoring the other person and attending to the other person. Because when I find, let's say, your entire studio that you've got set up, and I go, wow, that is like amazing. You like licked well. When I find that, it basically allows me to see you in a different way as well, because it focuses my attention. So brilliant. So that was a great one. For me, if I was doing a sales tip, it's a basic kind of thing, is that LinkedIn is your friend.
Yeah.
And use it as a tool, not a crutch. And just by looking, I've got Violet's profile up in front of me, and there's two names that are coming up that we're both connected to that you may or may not know. It's LinkedIn. So one is Gretchen Gordon, and the other one is Fred Diamond. And do you know any of those?
No.
Personally? Okay. So Fred, even though you don't know that person, Fred Diamond is someone you should meet, because Fred actually runs the Institute for Excellence in Sales in Washington, D.C.
Nice.
And one of the most successful programs is Women in Sales.
Oh, okay.
And you should be on their stage. And if you'd like
to be on their stage,
I'll do an introduction for you after you finish the podcast.
Yeah.
And so my tip is looking at LinkedIn and basically going, oh, what are the connections? So it's like, oh, you went to this school and my cousin went to the same school. Notice I didn't go there. That is enough to warm up a call.
Yes.
When you're talking to somebody, it's like, oh, you went to that school. Oh, my cousin's going there. And you're like, oh, really? Like I was on a plane the other day, and the young gentleman, there's about four of them in front of the seats, and the plane wasn't disembarking because of some gate issue. And as we're chatting, I said, oh, what do you do? And it's like, I'm a paramedic. And I go, oh, my niece is going to paramedic school at the Georgina College. And it's like, oh, I went there. And it's all of a sudden there's a friendship instantly. So LinkedIn's your friend. No more than 5 minutes on LinkedIn to research somebody.
Yeah.
And not
otherwise it's stalking.
And it's an excuse not to pick up the phone and call.
Right.
So what's another tip you'd like to share?
CRM. When I started in sales, we didn't have a CRM back in the day.
We had pencil and paper,
right?
A papyrus and a pen.
In my day, no. I had a pager, and I had a pocket full of quarters, and I knew where every working payphone was, and that's how you did business when I started. But today we have so many tools at our fingertips, and so a CRM, and not one just like but one that you're actually optimizing, one that you're looking at every day and identifying who are your hot leads, because you're tracking who was the last person who opened your email, and oh look, they've opened it 7 times in the last 24 hours, and using that data to act upon, right? And so I see so many salespeople still not using a CRM. My favorite is Pipedrive. Like I'm a Pipedrive girl through and through.
Nice.
I love the visual, and it's so sales focused. So that's why, and it's so cheap. It's like $30 a seat. I'll give you a link. You guys can get like a month for free. Yeah. So I would say definitely invest in a CRM and start teaching yourself the technology. You will constantly, if you're always committed to learning new technology, you will continue to evolve and thrive in the new modern workplace, because technology and thriving go hand in hand. So that's why I love CRMs.
So my tip would be, as a salesperson, it is your job to give your prospect an insight, because data is everywhere and data is useless. It's somebody that can analyze the data and say, this is what it means for you. If you can provide epiphanies to someone, it goes a long way to actually close the sale.
I love that.
One last one from you before we change topics.
Oh, goodness. What's another one? Okay. I would say time blocking. Time blocking is huge because once you have your strategy and you know what you're going to do and you're using your CRM, now you need time to execute and to act upon. And if you're just waiting and you're reacting as maybe a lead comes in here and there, you're leaving hundreds of thousands on the table, if not more.
Absolutely. So I'll give my last one. It's a tech one also. It's called a phone burner, and it's a power dialer. And the thing that this one does is that you call up the 800 number, and it dials the first phone number for you. And as soon as the person says hello, you say hello. There's no lag, and you're not dialing 12 people at a time. It's just one at a time. But if you hit voicemail, you can just click a button and it'll drop a voicemail for you and dial the next number, so you don't have to wait a minute and a half to do that. It just allows you to.
My husband has used that. He's worked at some call centers, and that it would just keep going, right?
Yeah, and so that way you can get through 100 calls, because these days 100 calls is what you need to have 10 conversations.
Wow.
Just because people are busy and they're using voicemail to protect, and it doesn't burn you out, because in the old way, it would be like 3 hours of slugging, and this could be like 30 minutes of a phone block, or at most 45 minutes of a phone block, and you can go through the whole thing and off you go.
Nice.
So, Violet, here is an interesting thing, is that human beings, at the heart of who we are, is where we hold our beliefs.
Yeah.
And there's certain areas of beliefs that are very powerful and really have an impact on sales. One set of beliefs is around money. And the second set of beliefs is around sales. And so oftentimes salespeople know what to do, but they don't do it because something's happening inside their head that's saying, oh, they'll be busy right now. They'll be better to call them on a Tuesday. Or I shouldn't. They want to ask for the sale, but they don't. They kind of roll around it and go around the thing rather than saying, Violet, would you like to have this product?
Right.
So it's about mindset. Your thoughts on mindset, like what if you have these powerful human beings that are well trained, and yet they have some limiting beliefs that get in the way. A, how do you know you have a limiting belief? And B, how do you overcome it?
Well, I think limiting beliefs they're always present in your life. Like there's patterns, right? There's continued struggles in one area or two areas or three areas. It's like it's a new situation, but new characters, but they're all the same, right? Like, so we just continue to struggle in certain areas. And, I think it goes beyond mindset. I call it vibe set, because our mindset is the effect. It's not the cause. And I think it's so important to understand the cause of what creates our mindset. Like, why are some people negative, some people anxious, some people depressed? Like, why? What is that? Like, we just choose one? No, that's the effect. It's not the cause. The cause is actually our early programming, when our brains were being developed, and the stories that we heard. And I heard something so powerful recently. Mr. Kenny Weiss said that what we feel as children, we become as adults. So if we felt not good enough, if we had a lot of fear in childhood, we grow up, we might mask it like I did for most of my life. Like, I had a suit, I had the smile, I made good money. I masked it all. It was like perfectionism. But underneath that was a much different story. And until we address the root cause and come to understand it and heal it, come out on the other side of it, it will continue to show up and keep us stuck. That's the foundational work in sales that people often don't talk about.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting is that you could have a little kid, 6 years old, gets a really good grade on their test.
Yeah.
An A. Everybody's happy.
Right.
And the kid knows that they really didn't try that hard and they got it.
Yeah.
Because humans are meaning-making machines, and the meaning they could make is, I'm a fake.
Right.
Which would not be true, but it would be true for them.
Yes.
And so, and you could have somebody else that gets a F and fails and goes, I'll show you. And all of a sudden they become like this just amazingly powerful, driven thing. Right. So it doesn't have to be a bad experience or a good experience. It's just the meaning that we make out of it. Sure. So absolutely, it's those early childhood experiences that create those beliefs that dictate how well we do.
Yeah. And to some, it even goes before childhood. Recently, I had found out that there's such a thing, I didn't know it was a thing, called second generation survivor, which I am. I'm a second generation survivor. My father was a child Holocaust survivor. And so what the science, it's called epigenetics, has shown is that even though I physically was not in the Holocaust running from Hitler's army like my father did, on a chemical level, my stress response is similar to my father's.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond that. And we'll come back to energy because that's what we've been talking about throughout the conversation. Is, by the way, I just got married in August last year.
Nice.
And,
congratulations.
Thank you. It's a very happy time. And my wife one of the things she does is she's a past life therapist.
Wow.
And the number of people that she's helped with that. And I'm a firm believer in something doesn't have to be true, but it has to be useful. And she's got like hundreds of people that are like, oh my God, you changed my life when I discovered X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So one of the things when we started our conversation, you were talking about sales, defining it as an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that we are energetic human beings.
Yes.
And we have all had this experience. You meet someone, they look perfectly fine. They're attractive. They're smiling. They're dressed well. They even smell pretty. But you just pick up a vibe going, there's something wrong with this person.
Yeah.
And, or you go, oh my God, it's like I've known Violet all my life. This is like, we've been siblings for a long time.
Long lost friends.
Energetic read, right? Sometimes you get that. And there's people that kind of perfect that vibe. Like one of the things I do a lot of therapy with folks, especially salespeople. And one of the things I'll do is I will really sync up with the other person. And as we're talking about something, I will feel anxiety in my gut. And I'll go, am I anxious about something? And the answer will be no. And I'll know that the other person sitting in front of me is feeling it right there in their gut, right here. And then what I'll do is I'll place my hand on that area of my body. You know, for some people, it makes them feel anxious. And when I do that, I'm holding my hand there. Then they'll go, oh my God, yeah, that's me. I'm feeling this thing right here.
Right.
So we're on the same vibe. And I think one of the things you said was that, you know, if we can help the other person increase their frequency by the way we connect with them, it just makes the worst case thing that happens is they just feel better about themselves. The best thing that happens is we build trust and we build a friendship.
That's right.
That may or may not lead to sales.
Right. But I also believe if you're putting that energy out there, even if it's not this client in front of you, I have found time and time again that when I show up with a good mental state, when I'm, you know, feeling passionate, excited, focused, like energized, and I put the work in, when I combine that energy with action, then no matter, even if nothing happens from this lead list that I worked, all of a sudden I'll get some like huge fish that lands in my lap.
Comes in.
Yes, because that's the energetic plane. I call it Channel 5, keeping it live on Channel 5. That's where I'm hanging out.
So what's kind of interesting is there was this one particular time in, must have been about 15, 20 years ago. Just every deal that I had was stuck. And I was like, why is this happening to me? And then I go, what would I tell a client to do if that was happening to them? I tell them is there anything dead in your house? And it just so happened that we had a tree that had died. The neighbor had put some weed killer and it killed the tree, which is ironically a hemlock tree, which is like poison that they used in Shakespeare times in his plays. Had died. So that afternoon I went out and I dug up the tree and removed it. And the very next day, all the deals started opening up. And conversation started. So we are energetic beings, and there's this plane of energy that is there, and some people can tap into it, and we can all learn from it. And so Violet, before we part company, tell me about a particular time when you first stumbled into this energetic thing where you kind of went, This is real. This is not mumbo jumbo. I get a sense this is real.
It's one of my favorite stories to tell. It's called 1 Year Later. It's actually what the framework that I teach. But when it was almost 20 years ago, like 18 years ago, I was a young single mom and I was going through a divorce, and not one area of my life was working. Like I had a young son. I was going from 2 incomes to 1. My family didn't support me. I lost friends. All this stuff. It was just not, but I knew I had stumbled upon Abraham Hicks and Marianne Williams and Alan Cohen. And I started, that was already, 2 decades ago. And I understood that my mental state mattered. So I made up this game and I called it 1 Year Later. And in the game, I would run into a girlfriend that I hadn't seen in a year. And I started telling her about my awesome house that I purchased, because that was my number one goal. I was still living with my soon-to-be ex-husband and I wanted a house. And so I would talk about how the house was on a cul-de-sac and it was 2,100 square feet and had these high ceilings and dark wood floors and black granite countertops and this big tub that I loved. And it brought me so much joy, and it instantly lifted me up. So I did it a few times a day. And within a few months, I kid you not, all of a sudden the market took a little dip when it was crazy hot, 18, offers on each home. And I pull up and there's a cul-de-sac and there's the families with their little kids, like I used to talk about, that on the street. And I walk in and it's the high ceilings and the dark, I had
exactly what you wanted.
Everything that I wanted, and I got the house. And I did it with being a wholesaler. So I was a financial advisor and I wanted to be a wholesaler. But it was 99% men, and you had to start with a different career path. And so all the odds were against me, but in my mind, nope, I was a wholesaler and they made me the small territory so I could have dinner with my son every night. And I loved what I did, and within a few months, I got an offer. And he even used my exact words. I used to say, they're going to see my raw talent. And he said, when he offered me the job, he said, I don't normally hire people with your background, but I see your raw talent.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story.
Isn't that crazy?
And the thing I love about it is that you could have visualized what you wanted, and that has a certain level of power. But visualizing talking to a girlfriend is totally genius. That is I
didn't just visualize, I said it out loud.
Oh,
I set it on fire. It's not I think we have to speak as if, feel as if, act as if. That's what it allows us to do, is to step into this new character, this new role, the highest version of ourselves. And it's a pretty nice place to be. But it connects us to a higher vibrational state of being than we've ever been on.
Brilliant. So as we part company, Violet, how can people get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm under my name, Violet Rainwater, or go to my website, www.therainmakersway.com, and you can fill out a contact form or email me at violet@therainmakersway.com.
Brilliant. Violet, thanks so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed the experience.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Hang tight.